The desert wind carried dust and desperation through the main street of Clearwater, Arizona Territory, as townspeople gathered around the courthouse steps for what had become a weekly spectacle of hardship. The year was 1885, and the harsh realities of frontier life had left many families broken, their possessions and sometimes even their children subject to the merciless demands of debt and survival. Sheriff Tom Bradley stood on the courthouse steps, his weathered face showing the weariness of a man who had presided over too many such gatherings. In his hands, he held a piece of paper that would determine the fate of 8-year-old Lucy Matthews, whose mother had been imprisoned for theft and whose father had died in a mining accident 6 months prior. "Folks," Sheriff Bradley announced to the crowd of about 30 people, "we're here to find placement for Lucy Matthews. The girl needs a home, and the territory needs her debt settled. Bidding starts at $5 for indentured service until she reaches 18. From the side of the courthouse, Lucy stood between two women from the territorial orphanage, her small frame dwarfed by a faded blue dress that had been mended multiple times. Her dark hair was braided neatly, but her eyes held the hollow look of a child who had seen too much loss in her short life. In the crowd, 45-year-old Catherine Kate O'Sullivan watched with growing horror. Kate had come to town to purchase supplies for her cattle ranch, but she had never witnessed a child being auctioned like livestock. Having immigrated from Ireland during the potato famine as a young woman, Kate understood desperation, but this felt like something from a nightmare. "Do I hear $5? Called the sheriff. A stern-faced woman named Mrs. Prudence Whitmore raised her hand. Kate knew her by reputation, a woman who took in children for the manual labor they could provide, treating them little better than slaves under the guise of Christian charity. $5, Mrs. Whitmore called out. "The girl looks strong enough for kitchen work and tending chickens. I have 5. Do I hear 7? A rough-looking man named Bill Carson, who owned a struggling farm outside town, raised his hand. $7. Need someone to help with the younger ones and the washing." Kate felt her stomach turn as she watched Lucy's face grow paler with each bid. The child was being discussed like a piece of property, her future decided by whoever could spare the most coins. $10. Came a voice from the back of the crowd. Everyone turned to see Jake Morrison, a saloon keeper with a reputation for less than honorable intentions toward the girls who worked for him. Kate's blood ran cold as she realized what fate might await Lucy in his establishment. $10 to Jake Morrison, the sheriff announced. "Do I hear $15? Kate heard herself say, her Irish accent cutting through the desert air like a blade. The crowd turned to look at her, a tall, strong woman in practical ranch clothes, her red hair showing streaks of silver and her green eyes blazing with determination. "15 to the lady," said Sheriff Bradley. "Do I hear $20? Morrison countered, his eyes narrowing as he studied Kate. Kate felt for the money in her pocket, the cash she had brought to buy winter supplies for her ranch. She had enough, but spending it all here would mean a difficult winter ahead. $25. She called out firmly. A murmur went through the crowd. $25 was more than many families saw in 2 months. Morrison scowled but remained silent, apparently unwilling to go higher for what he likely saw as just another potential employee. $25, Sheriff Bradley announced. "Going once. Going twice." $30, Mrs. Whitmore called out desperately, clearly understanding that this was her last chance to acquire cheap labor. Kate's heart sank. She didn't have $30 to spare. But as she looked at Lucy, she saw something that changed everything. The girl was looking directly at her, with eyes full of desperate hope, as if she somehow understood that Kate represented her only chance at something resembling kindness. In that moment, Lucy did something that shocked everyone present. She stepped forward from her guardians and, in a voice barely above a whisper but clear enough for those nearby to hear, said, "That's my mother." The crowd fell silent, confused by this unexpected declaration. Lucy pointed at Kate and spoke louder. "That's my mother. She's been looking for me." Kate's mind raced. She understood immediately what the clever child was attempting, creating a legal claim that would supersede the auction. It was a desperate gambit, but one that might work if Kate played along. Sheriff Bradley frowned. "Ma'am, is this child your daughter?" Kate met Lucy's eyes and saw not just desperation, but intelligence and courage that reminded her of herself at that age. In that instant, she made a decision that would change both their lives. "Yes," Kate said clearly, her voice carrying the authority of absolute certainty. "She is my daughter, and I've been searching for her since she was taken from our home. During a raid last spring, it was a believable story. Apache raids were common enough, and children were sometimes scattered in the chaos." Sheriff Bradley looked skeptical. "Can you prove this claim, Lucy?" With the quick thinking of a child who had learned to survive by her wits, stepped forward again. "Mama," she said, looking directly at Kate, "tell them about the scar on my shoulder from when I fell off Buttercup." Kate's heart nearly stopped. The child was creating a shared history on the spot, trusting Kate to follow her lead. Kate had no idea if Lucy actually had such a scar, but she nodded solemnly. "The scar is shaped like a crescent moon," Kate said, praying she was guessing correctly, "from when she fell from her horse trying to reach an apple from the tree by our barn." Lucy nodded eagerly, and Kate saw her discreetly touch her left shoulder. Apparently, she did indeed have a scar there, though likely from some other childhood mishap. The sheriff looked between Kate and Lucy, seeing what appeared to be a genuine reunion between mother and child. "Well," he said finally, "if this is a family matter, then there's no need for an auction. Ma'am, you'll need to cover the girl's debt to the territory, $15 for room and board at the orphanage." Kate quickly counted out $15, leaving her with just enough money for basic supplies. "Here," she said, handing over the coins as the disappointed crowd dispersed. Kate approached Lucy, still not entirely sure what she had gotten herself into, but certain that she couldn't have stood by and watched the child be sold to people who would mistreat her. "Well, daughter," Kate said quietly, extending her hand to Lucy, "I suppose it's time to go home." Lucy took Kate's hand with a grip that spoke of both gratitude and lingering fear. "Yes, Mama," she whispered, playing her part but with tears of relief beginning to form in her eyes as they walked toward Kate's wagon. Lucy looked up at the tall woman who had just claimed her as family. "Ma'am," she whispered, "why did you save me?" Kate stopped walking and knelt down to Lucy's level. "Because every child deserves better than being sold like cattle, and because," she paused, surprised by her own honesty, "because I think we both need a family." As they climbed into the wagon and headed toward Kate's ranch, neither of them fully understood how this moment of desperate improvisation would grow into something real and lasting, but both knew that their lives had just taken a turn that neither could have imagined. When the sun rose that morning, the ride to Kate's ranch took 2 hours across the rugged Arizona landscape, with towering red mesas and endless stretches of desert scrub broken only by the occasional creek bed. Lucy sat quietly beside Kate on the wagon bench, her hands folded in her lap and her eyes taking in everything. As if memorizing her escape route, Kate's ranch, the Double K, appeared in the distance as the sun was beginning to set. It was a modest operation by frontier standards, a sturdy adobe house with a wraparound porch, a barn, several outbuildings, and corrals that currently held about 50 head of cattle. Smoke was rising from the chimney, indicating that Kate's foreman, Miguel Santos, was preparing the evening meal. "This is home," Kate said simply as they pulled up to the house. Lucy stared at the ranch with wonder. After months in the territorial orphanage, the prospect of a real home seemed almost too good to be true. Miguel, a Mexican man in his 50s, who had worked for Kate for over a decade, emerged from the house wiping his hands on a kitchen towel. His weathered face showed curiosity as he saw the young girl beside his boss, Miguel. Kate said as she helped Lucy down from the wagon, "This is Lucy. She'll be staying with us." Miguel's eyes took in Lucy's thin frame and worn clothes, and his expression softened with understanding. He had seen enough abandoned children in his lifetime to recognize one in need. "Benvenida. Señorita," Miguel said warmly, switching to English when he saw Lucy's confusion. "Welcome. Are you hungry?" Lucy nodded shyly, and Miguel smiled. "Good. I have beans and fresh tortillas." And Kate brought back supplies for cornbread. That first evening established a routine that would define their early days together. Miguel served dinner while Kate and Lucy sat at the rough wooden table, attempting to navigate the delicate dance of two strangers pretending to be family. "Lucy," Kate said carefully, "we should probably talk about our situation." Lucy looked up from her plate, her eyes wary again. "Are you going to send me back?" "No," Kate said firmly, "but we need to figure out how this is going to work. Today, we told people we were family. If we're going to make that believable, we need to know about each other." Over the next hour, Lucy's real story emerged. Her father, Thomas Matthews, had been a miner who died in a cave-in. Her mother, Sarah, had been arrested for stealing food to feed Lucy and was currently serving time in the territorial prison in Yuma. Lucy had been surviving in the orphanage, where conditions were harsh and the staff overwhelmed. "What about you?" Lucy asked. "Do you really live here all alone except for Miguel?" Kate found herself sharing more than she had intended. She told Lucy about immigrating from Ireland, about her late husband Patrick, who had died of fever 3 years after they established the ranch, and about the loneliness of running a cattle operation with only Miguel for consistent company. "I always wanted children," Kate admitted, "but Patrick and it just never happened for us. So when I said you were my mother, you weren't just being kind. You wanted a daughter." Kate considered this. "I suppose I did, though I never expected to acquire one quite like this." The first weeks were challenging for both of them. Lucy had learned to be self-sufficient and distrustful of adults, while Kate had become accustomed to independence and making decisions without considering anyone else's needs. Lucy proved to be intelligent and eager to learn, but she also had habits born of survival that sometimes clashed with Kate's expectations. She hoarded food in her room, woke up at the slightest sound, and flinched whenever Kate raised her voice even. In normal conversation, "Lucy," Kate said gently one morning after finding a stash of biscuits under the girl's mattress, "you don't need to hide food. There will always be enough here. My mama used to say that too," Lucy replied quietly. Before she got arrested for stealing bread, Kate felt a stab of understanding. "Lucy, look at me. This ranch may not make us rich, but we will never go hungry, I promise you that." It was Miguel who helped bridge the gap between them. Having grown up in poverty in Mexico before coming to work for Kate, he understood both Lucy's fear and Kate's good intentions. "Segura, Kate," he said one evening, after Lucy had gone to bed, "the niga needs time. She has learned that adults make promises they cannot keep. You must show her, not just tell her." Miguel was right. Over the following weeks, Kate focused on consistent actions rather than words. She made sure Lucy had enough food at every meal and didn't comment when the girl took extra. She established routines that Lucy could count on: breakfast at sunrise, chores in the morning, lessons in reading and arithmetic in the afternoon, and stories by the fireplace in the evening. Slowly, Lucy began to trust. She started asking questions about ranch life, offering to help with chores, and even occasionally smiling at Miguel's gentle jokes. She proved to have a natural affinity for the horses and cattle, showing no fear of the large animals and an intuitive understanding of their behavior. "You're a natural ranch hand," Kate told her one afternoon as they watched Lucy successfully separate a calf from the herd for medical treatment. "My papa used to say I had a way with animals," Lucy replied, her face lighting up at the memory. "He said they could tell I had a kind heart." It was the first time Lucy had mentioned her father without sadness overwhelming her joy, and Kate recognized it as a significant step forward. The breakthrough came 6 weeks after Lucy's arrival, during a late autumn storm that brought the first snow to the high desert. Lightning spooked the cattle, and several head broke through a section of fence during the night. Kate and Miguel spent the morning rounding up the scattered animals, but they were still missing 3 head when another storm threatened to roll in. "I'll take the north pasture," Kate told Miguel as they prepared to continue the search. "I want to help," Lucy said from the porch where she had been watching their preparations. Kate hesitated. "It could be dangerous, and the weather." "I know these hills now," Lucy interrupted, "and I know the cattle. Buttercup knows the way to the water tank near Devil's Canyon. That's probably where they went." Kate looked at the 8-year-old girl who had named Kate's horse after an imaginary horse from her fabricated story, and realized that Lucy had become genuinely invested in the ranch's success. "All right," Kate said. "But you stay close to me." Lucy's guess proved correct. They found the 3 missing steers near the water tank, and Lucy's calm presence helped them guide the animals back to the main herd without incident. That evening, as they sat around the fire with hot coffee and warm blankets, Kate made an observation that surprised them both. "You know, Lucy, when we told that story about you being my daughter, I thought we were just playing roles. But somewhere along the way, it stopped feeling like pretending." Lucy looked up from the sock she was darning, a skill Miguel had taught her. "Does that mean I can really call you Mama? Not just when other people are listening?" Kate felt tears prick her eyes. "I'd like that very much, daughter." From the kitchen, Miguel smiled as he heard the conversation. The lonely Irish widow and the orphaned miner's daughter had found what they both needed in each other, not just companionship, but real family born from choice rather than blood. As winter settled over the Arizona territory, the Double K Ranch had become home to 3 people who had all learned that sometimes the most meaningful families are the ones created by necessity, nurtured by kindness, and strengthened by shared purpose. Spring came early to Arizona territory in 1886, bringing with it not just wildflowers and warmer weather, but unexpected visitors that would test the strength of the family. Kate and Lucy had built over the winter months. Lucy had grown stronger and more confident during the cold months, learning to read fluently under Kate's patient instruction and becoming an indispensable part of the ranch operation. At 9 years old, she could handle horses better than many grown men and had developed a sophisticated understanding of cattle behavior that impressed even experienced ranchers. The trouble began on a Tuesday morning in March when Sheriff Bradley rode up to the ranch house with a grim expression and an official-looking document in his saddlebags. "Kate," he said, dismounting slowly, "we need to talk." Lucy, who had been feeding chickens in the yard, froze when she saw the sheriff. Her first instinct was to run, but months of security had given her enough confidence to approach the porch, where Kate stood waiting. "What brings you out here, Tom?" Kate asked, though her tone suggested she suspected this wasn't a social visit. Sheriff Bradley removed his hat and ran his hand through his graying hair. "It's about the girl." "Kate, I've got some questions that need answering." "What kind of questions?" "The kind that come from the territorial prison in Yuma. Seems a woman named Sarah Matthews has been asking about her daughter Lucy. Claims the girl was taken illegally by a woman claiming to be her mother." Kate felt her blood turn to ice. Lucy's real mother was alive and looking for her. Lucy stepped closer to Kate, sighed, her face pale. "What does that mean?" Sheriff Bradley's expression softened as he looked at the girl. Over the past months, he had heard nothing but good reports about how Kate was raising Lucy, and he could see the obvious bond between them. "It means, little miss, that your real mama is getting out of prison next month, and she wants you back." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Kate put a protective arm round Lucy's shoulders, feeling the girl tremble beneath her touch. "Now, Kate," the sheriff continued, "I've got to ask you straight out, is this child really your daughter, or did you cook up that story to get her away from the auction?" Kate looked down at Lucy, seeing fear and pleading in the girl's eyes. In that moment, she realized that whatever legal consequences she might face, she couldn't betray the trust Lucy had placed in her. "She's my daughter in every way that matters," Kate said firmly. "That's not what I asked." Lucy, showing the same courage that had saved her at the auction, stepped forward. "Sheriff Bradley, Kate is my mama. Now, my birth mama couldn't take care of me, that's why she went to jail. Kate saved me from being sold to bad people, and she's given me a home and love and everything a daughter needs." Sheriff Bradley knelt down to Lucy's level. "I understand that, child. But the law is the law. Your birth mother has legal rights, and she's paid her debt to society." "What happens now?" Kate asked. "Sarah Matthews will be released in 2 weeks. She's demanded that her daughter be returned to her custody." Immediately upon her release, the sheriff stood up, his expression regretful. "I'm sorry, Kate. I know you've done right by this girl, but I don't have a choice in the matter." After the sheriff left, Kate and Lucy sat together on the porch steps, both lost in thought. "Are you going to let her take me?" Lucy asked quietly. Kate was quiet for a long moment. "Lucy, I want you to understand something. When I claimed you as my daughter, I meant it. That means I'll fight for you with everything I have. But what if you can't win? Then I'll make sure you know that you'll always be my daughter, no matter what anyone else says or where you have to live. Over the next 2 weeks, Kate consulted with the only lawyer in Clearwater, a young man named James Patterson, who had recently arrived from back east. With modern ideas about family law, Mrs. O'Sullivan, Patterson explained, legally, you have no standing. You're not Lucy's biological mother, and your claim at the auction, while clever, was essentially fraud. But Lucy chose me, Kate protested. Doesn't that count for anything? Morally, yes. Legally, no. However, Patterson consulted his notes. There might be one avenue we can explore. If we can prove that Sarah Matthews is unfit to care for Lucy, or that returning the child to her custody would be harmful, we might be able to petition for guardianship. What would we need to prove that? Evidence of neglect, abuse, or inability to provide for the child's welfare. Kate's heart sank from what Lucy had told her. Sarah Matthews had been a loving mother who had only turned to theft out of desperation to feed her daughter. The day Sarah Matthews was released from prison, she arrived in Clearwater on the afternoon stage, accompanied by a representative from the territorial government. Kate and Lucy waited in the lawyer's office, both dressed in their best clothes, and hoping for a miracle. Sarah Matthews was a thin woman in her early 30s, with dark hair like Lucy's and eyes that showed the hardness that prison could instill. But when she saw Lucy, her entire demeanor changed, and tears began streaming down her face. Lucy, my baby girl. Sarah rushed forward to embrace her daughter. Lucy accepted the hug, but remained stiff, looking over her mother's shoulder at Kate. With confusion and fear, Mama, Lucy said quietly, this is Kate. She's been taking care of me. Sarah looked up at Kate with a mixture of gratitude and suspicion. Thank you for caring for my daughter, but I'm here to take her home now. Where is home? Kate asked gently. Do you have a place to live, work? Sarah's jaw tightened. I'll figure it out. She's my daughter. Patterson cleared his throat. Mrs. Matthews, perhaps we could discuss arrangements that would be in Lucy's best interest. My daughter's best interest is being with her mother. Sarah interrupted. I've served my time, and now I want my child back. Lucy spoke up, her voice small but clear. Mama Sarah, I love you. But Kate is my mama now too. Can't I have both? The adults in the room exchanged glances, recognizing the wisdom in the child's simple question. Kate stepped forward. Sarah, I can see that you love Lucy, and she loves you. But she's been through so much trauma, and she's finally found stability. What if we found a way for all of us to be part of her life? Sarah studied Kate's face, seeing genuine care and concern. What do you mean? I mean, what if you stayed in Clearwater? I could use help on the ranch, and you could be near Lucy while we all figure out what's best for her. It was a bold proposal, and everyone in the room understood the complications it might create. But as they looked at Lucy, a girl who had shown such courage and wisdom throughout her ordeal, they all realized that her happiness had to be the priority. I'd like to think about it, Sarah said finally. Lucy walked over to her berth, mother, and took her hand, then extended her other hand to Kate. Maybe we could all think about it together, she suggested, as the three of them stood there, connected by the hands of a 9-year-old girl who had learned that families could be created, broken, and rebuilt in ways no one expected. They began to understand that love doesn't always follow conventional rules. 6 months later, the Double K Ranch had transformed into something none of them could have imagined when Sarah Matthews first arrived to reclaim her daughter. The adobe house had been expanded with a new room. The vegetable garden had doubled in size, and the sound of laughter had become a regular part of the daily routine. Sarah had accepted Kate's offer to stay and work on the ranch, though the arrangement had required careful navigation of emotions, expectations, and the complex reality of two women who both loved the same child. Lucy, Sarah called from the kitchen where she was preparing lunch. Come wash up and tell Kate the stew is ready. Lucy came running from the corral, where she had been working with a young colt, her face flushed with excitement and achievement. At 10 years old, She had grown taller and stronger, but more importantly, she had grown confident in the knowledge that she was loved and wanted by multiple people. "Mama Sarah, you should see Thunderball today. He's finally letting me put the halter on without fighting." Kate appeared from the barn, wiping her hands on a rag. "That's my girl," she said proudly. "You've got your father's gift with horses." It had taken time for the two mothers to learn to share Lucy without competing for her affection. There had been difficult conversations, moments of jealousy, and times when each woman had to step back and remember that Lucy's well-being was more important than their own needs. Sarah had proven to be a hard worker and a quick learner. Her experience of hardship had made her practical and resilient, qualities that served her well on the ranch. More importantly, she had recognized that Kate's love for Lucy was genuine, and that the girl had indeed found something special during her time at the Double K. "I need to tell you both something," Lucy announced as they sat down for lunch. "Mrs. Patterson asked me to speak at the church social next week about families." Kate and Sarah exchanged glances. Lucy had become something of a local celebrity, not just because of her unusual family situation, but because of her wise observations about love and belonging. What are you going to say?" Kate asked. Lucy thought carefully before answering. "I want to tell them that families aren't just about who births you. They're about who chooses you, who fights for you, and who helps you become the person you're supposed to be." "And what else?" Sarah prompted, knowing her daughter had more to say. "That sometimes the best families are the ones that get put together in unexpected ways, like puzzle pieces that don't look like they should fit, but when you put them together, they make a perfect picture." That afternoon, as the three of them worked together repairing fence line, Lucy asked the question that had been on her mind for weeks. "Do you think we'll always be together like this?" Kate and Sarah had discussed this possibility privately, but hearing Lucy's voice, it made them both realize how much this arrangement had come to mean to all of them. "I don't know about always," Kate said honestly, "but I know that we're family. Now, whatever happens." "What does that mean exactly?" Lucy pressed. Sarah stopped working and looked at both Kate and Lucy. "It means that when I was in prison, I dreamed of getting you back, but now I understand that getting you back doesn't mean taking you away from Kate. It means we all figured out how to love you together." And Kate added, "It means that no matter what changes come in the future, you'll always have to mothers who love you." In a home here on the Double K, Miguel, who had been listening from nearby, smiled as he continued his work. He had watched this unusual family form and grow, and he understood that what they had created was stronger than many traditional families he had known. As the sun set over the Arizona desert, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and purple, the three women sat on the porch of the ranch house, planning for the next day's work and sharing stories from their past. "Kate," Sarah said quietly, "I need to thank you for something I never properly thanked you for." "What's that?" "For seeing Lucy as more than just a child being auctioned, for recognizing that she deserved better and being willing to risk everything to give it to her." Kate smiled. "Sarah, I need to thank you for something too." "What?" "For raising a daughter brave enough to save herself and generous enough to share her love with someone who needed a family as much as she did." Lucy, sitting between them, listened to this exchange and felt a deep sense of satisfaction. At 10 years old, she had learned lessons about love, courage, and family that many adults never discover. "You know," Lucy said thoughtfully, "when I told everyone that Kate was my mother at the auction, I thought I was lying to save myself. But it turned out I was telling the truth, I just didn't know it yet." As stars began to appear in the vast Arizona sky, the three of them understood that they had created something rare and precious, a family built on choice, sustained by love, and strengthened by the understanding that sometimes the most beautiful things in life come from the most unexpected circumstances. The story of the girl who saved herself from an auction by claiming a stranger as her mother had become legend in Clearwater, but for Kate, Sarah, and Lucy, it wasn't a story, it was simply their life, imperfect but full of love, built on the foundation of one moment of desperate courage that had blossomed into lasting joy. Years later, Lucy would indeed speak at churches and community gatherings about the nature of family, but her most important audience was always the children who, like her, needed to understand that being wanted and loved was not dependent on the circumstances of their birth, but on their own courage to recognize love when it appeared even in the most unlikely forms.